It's Sabbath school time, Sabbath school time. Glad you came to join us to hear about Jesus and His love. We're glad you came to join us. It's Sabbath school time, Sabbath school time. We're glad you came to join us to hear about Jesus and His love. We're glad you came to join us.
Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to another online Sabbath school. It's lesson 3 or episode 3, I suppose you can call it. Now remember, always check back if you've missed any of the episodes. Check back on this channel and look out for all the episodes that you might have missed. And as usual, we're going to invite the presence of God to be with us as we have Sabbath school. Let's pray. Dear Lord, bless us as we have our Sabbath school today. Thank you for this opportunity to study about you, learn about you, and to share your message with others. Thank you that you love us. Thank you that you died to save us. And thank you that you will soon come to take us to be with you forevermore. Bless our families, bless our friends, bless every boy and girl and mommy and daddy who are listening today. Amen. It's song service time, boys and girls. It's time to lift our voices and sing praise to Jesus.
Like the stars of the I'm here sitting in my veranda, and two lizards crawled up onto the wall. They're two male lizards, and it seems like they are in a duel. They're getting ready to fight. I wonder what they're fighting over. They're doing some head bobs. They're displaying the underside of their throat. In Barbados, we call these types of lizards, the male lizards, cockies. Well, at least where I grew up, that's what we call them, cockies. This reminds me of a battle. These two male lizards are about to battle, it seems, over territory. It reminds me of a battle that took place in heaven, and we can find that story in Revelation.
Girls, after I saw those two lizards about to fight, I ran inside quickly, and when I came back out, they were gone. But those two lizards that were about to fight reminded me of a story found in Revelation 12:7. And I'm going to read it for you. And it says, and I'm reading from the Holman Christian Standard Bible. It says, "Then war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. The dragon and his angels also fought, but he could not prevail, and there was no place for them in heaven any longer. So the great dragon was thrown out, the ancient serpent who is called the devil and Satan, the one who deceives the whole world. He was thrown to the earth, and his angels with him." That, children, in Revelation 12:7-9 is the story of what happened in heaven. Satan, well, his name wasn't Satan at that time. It was Lucifer. Sin developed in his mind, and he went about spreading all sorts of things, lies about God in heaven. And so 1/3 of the angels came on Lucifer's side, and he became Satan, and they fought against Jesus, who the Bible calls Michael. But they did not win. They could not win because Michael, who is Jesus, is the eternal God, and they were cast out from heaven into the earth. And this is the story that those two lizards reminded me of. But boys and girls, that story did not end there. The end of the story is that Jesus is victorious, and he and all of those who choose him will be victorious with him. And soon, boys and girls, there will be no more sin, no more fighting, no more wars, no more lizards battling for territory or for a mate. Nothing like that. Everything will be peaceful and joyous.
My God is so big, so strong and so mighty, there's nothing my God cannot do. My God is so big, so strong and so mighty, there's nothing my God cannot do. For you, the mountains are his, the rivers are his, the stars are his, and the earth too. My God is so big, so strong and so mighty, there's nothing my God cannot do for you.
It's our devotion time, and our devotion is taken from the book of Hebrews, chapter 1, verses 1 and 2. And I'll be reading from the New King James Version. God, who at various times and in various ways spoke in time past to the fathers by the prophets, has in these last days spoken to us by his Son, whom he has appointed heir of all things, through whom also he made the worlds. What is that text telling us? Boys and girls, if you remember before, when we first began our online Sabbath school, we looked at different things. We looked at the blossoming trees, and we talked about how Jesus was coming soon. Last week, we looked at some texts that told us about the love of God and about knowing Jesus, and that Jesus loves us and he died to save us. Now, this text, Hebrews 1:1 and 2, is telling us that in the last days of Earth's history, God speaks to us by his Son. He used the prophets of old to give a message. And now, in these last days, he's given a message to his people, to the entire world, actually. He's given that message by his Son. But Jesus came and he lived and he died. That was many years ago. How is he giving that message? By his Son. Well, boys and girls, the Bible tells us that Jesus is the one who reveals the Father. How can he do that? Well, because he's just like the Father. So, boys and girls, as we study and think and reflect, let us think about the life of Jesus. Who was Jesus? Jesus was loving, he was kind, he healed the sick, he came to save every single one. And that is the message that he's still giving today. That message of his untiring love to us, his love that gives all. So, as Hebrews 1 verses 1 and 2 says, in these last days, he speaks to us by his Son. Boys and girls, let us learn about Jesus, learn about his love for you and me and for everyone. Because when we learn about that love and we see how wonderful he is, then we will want to know him. Oh, I want to know Jesus. Do you want to know Jesus too? It's now time for our mission story, and our mission story takes us back to Europe, to a place, I might say it might be one of the most visited places in Europe. Can you guess what country we're going to be in this week? It's France. And our story is about a boy named Matthew and his mother. Not only are you going to get that story about Matthew and his mother, but I'll add a little bonus story about my experience, my family's experience. Now, Matthew loved playing the piano, but his mom and dad could not afford a piano. And there was a little organ in the house, and Matthew would practice on that organ rather. But it wasn't doing the job. So Matthew, while he was taking lessons, he would always fall behind because he couldn't practice properly. He did not have the right instrument to practice on. And Matthew was sad and he said, "Mom, can we get a piano so that I can practice properly?" Mom said, "I'm sorry, Matthew, but pianos are extremely expensive and we cannot afford a piano." But Mom said, "What I can do for you is I can pray about it." So Mom brought Matthew with her, and together they knelt and prayed that the Lord would provide a piano. Well, weeks passed by and they had gone on about their business. Matthew was still practicing on the little organ and he was still falling behind, but he still loved it anyway. Well, one day, Mom took Matthew to visit one of her friends, and Mom went off to speak with the friend, and Matthew stayed there watching a little video. Soon Matthew realized that, I hear music in the background. And not only do I hear music, I hear piano music. And Matthew looked around, and guess what he saw? A piano was in Mom's friend's house. Matthew got so excited, he ran up to the lady and said, "Oh, you have a piano?" And she said, "Yes, I have a piano. I used to play, but I don't play so much now." Matthew said, "Oh, I love the piano, but we don't have one. I wish we had a piano." And the lady looked up at him and he said, "Do you want it?" He said, "Oh, Mom, can we have it?" And Mom said, "Of course." Matthew was so excited. Mom told a friend, "We have been praying for a piano. We prayed a few weeks back and we didn't know how we could get a piano. And look, today we've come here to visit with you, and God has used you to bless us with a piano." Now, the friend said, I offered someone this piano before, and they came for it, but they could not figure out a way to get this piano in their apartment, which was on the 4th floor. So they left it here. And this is the only reason why this piano is still here. But then the friend thought, and she said, well, maybe the piano was left here so that Matthew could get the piano. Matthew and his mom were so excited and so grateful and thank God for providing that piano. And you know what, boys and girls? Matthew took that piano, they took the piano home, and Matthew used that piano to practice, and soon he got really, really good. So much so that his teacher told him that he had a real talent for music. And Matthew used that talent to play at church, play at school, play for concerts. He just used his talent any way and anywhere he could. This is like our story. Remember I told you I would share a part of my story with you? Well, my son and now my daughter love playing the piano. But we did not have a piano. We had a little cheap keyboard on which he would practice, my son would practice. And it couldn't do much. The keys were not right. It wasn't a good piano. So we prayed And I did not know, none of us knew how we could get a piano. And a piano for a reasonable price, because here pianos are extremely expensive. So one day, my mother called and said, there is a listing for a piano in the newspaper. And I gave it a call, and the person said, gave a price for the piano. It was a very reasonable price. So we decided we were going to purchase this piano. So we went to the house to get this piano. When we got there, the man was so nice and he was so excited to see my son, who was little, that was 2 years ago, who was little. And he said, can you play something for me? Well, when my son went to the piano was not tuned. So he said, I can't play this because it's so out of tune. And so the man said, you know that the piano is out of tune? Well, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take off the money that will be used to tune the piano. I'm going to subtract that from the total cost of the piano that I'm selling you, so you can get it for a cheaper price. Boys and girls, we were so excited. We got the piano even cheaper. And so we brought home the piano and we finally got a piano in 2018, 2 years ago. And my son and now my daughter use that piano to practice. And that same piano is used in playing the music for the songs that we sing at Sabbath school. Boys and girls, God provides everything that we need, just like He provided for Matthew and his mother. We just need to pray to God, and when we receive the blessings from God, let us be thankful and use the blessings that we have received to bless others. Are you enjoying Sabbath school so far? Well, it's time now for Auntie Flo with our lesson study. Pay close attention to see where the story takes us today.
Hello, children. Welcome to our lesson study. I hope you are enjoying the Bible stories and practicing the important lessons you are learning from them. As usual, before we start today's lesson, I'll introduce you to the lesson for next week. And it's all about another king, King Hezekiah. And his story can be found in two books of the Bible, 2 Chronicles chapters 29 to 32 and 2 Kings chapters 18 to 20. It is also found in the book Prophets and Kings, pages 331 to 339, and also pages 349 to 366. It's a lot of reading, but there is so much to learn about him. Now, before we start today's lesson, I want us all to kneel, to pray, and ask God to be with us. Everybody kneeling, eyes closed. Our Father which art in heaven, we are so thankful to you that we can be alive today on this Sabbath day to be able to worship you and to learn of you. We thank you for taking care of all of us throughout the past week, all the children who are here, and we ask that you would help them to listen, to learn, and to be taught by your Spirit so they can be better boys and girls for you. For Jesus' sake, amen. Now, today's lesson is entitled, You Began So Well. And as we go through this lesson, you will see that it reminds you of someone we've heard of before. And there's a special word you would have learned from that other king. Now, the memory verse is very familiar. It's one that we have learnt already. Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. Say it with me. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not unto your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. Now, we are studying about some kings of Judah. And this story is about another one of them. Now, although the country of Judah consisted of God's people, would you believe that many times they worship idols? And even those people who led them, some of the kings and the queens worship idols as well. And of course, it made God so sad. Now, at this time, a queen was leading Judah. Her name was Athaliah, wicked Queen Athaliah. Now, last week we heard about another wicked queen, but she was from over in Israel. Do you remember her name? She was Queen Jezebel, that's right. And her husband was King Ahab, and they both worship idols. Now we are here in Judah with Queen Athaliah, and she was not a nice lady at all. Now all of the people, the young men who were supposed to be the next king of Judah, they had been killed. And Queen Athaliah was not at all pleased because her son was one of them. And she decided to kill all the other royal young men who were in line to the throne. But the priest of God, priest Jehoiada, hid a little baby boy. He was just about 1 year old. And he hid him in the temple. And you know how long he hid him for? 6 years. So if he got him when he was 1 year and he hid him for 6 whole years, how old was he at this time? 1 and 6 would give you what? 7. He was now 7 years old. And when he turned 7 years old, Priest Jehoiada decided it was time. So this is what he did. He went all through the kingdom of Judah and he spoke to some important rulers and some leading men and some captains and some guards about the new little boy who was a prince, and told them he was going to be made king. But he had to do it secretly. Can you guess why? Yes, if Queen Athaliah had heard about it, she would have searched him out and had him killed too. So the priest Jehoiada did all of this secretly, and he brought them at different times to the temple and introduced them to him. Now, the day of the coronation came. Remember what coronation means? That's when they are going to make somebody king or queen. But of course, in this case, it would be king. All the guards were placed at the doors of the temple, and the important rulers came in. Everybody was gathered, and when everybody was in place, the priest Jehoiada went for Prince Joash. What's his name? Prince Joash. And he brought him to the temple, and he made him stand next to the pillar. A pillar is a tall, strong wall that helps to support the roof. And he put Prince Joash to stand next to the pillar. And all the people were assembled, and they crowned him king. So now he's no longer Prince Joash, he's now King Joash. But remember, how old is he? He is only 7 years old. But the people shouted, they were happy. God save the king! God save the king! Now, I do not know how close Queen Athaliah's palace was to the temple, but with all the people shouting, God save the king, she heard the commotion and came rushing down to the temple. Of course, there were temple guards, but when she stepped inside, they allowed her to step inside, and she saw the little boy with the crown on his head. She realized a new king had been chosen, and she was angry, and she shouted, treason! Now that word treason means that people are doing things and saying lots of things against a government or whoever is ruling. So she is shouting, treason! But the guards didn't let her get any further. They arrested her, took her away, got rid of her. Now King Joash could rule the place called Judah. But remember, he's very young. So the priest Jehoiada had to be there to help him. And he did. He helped to guide him because Jehoiada worshiped God and he was faithful to God. And one of the first things the priest encouraged the king to do, and all the people, is that he encouraged them to pledge themselves to serve God. You hear that word pledge? A pledge is a promise. And the people, and of course the king, pledged themselves to serve God. And they started really well serving God. But something made King Joash sad. As he went around, walking around the temple, he was not pleased at how the temple looked. It looked old, and there were holes in the walls. And he asked the priest, what happened? Why is the temple of God looking like this? And the priest told him that the wicked Queen Athaliah knocked out some of those strong stones to put into the temple of her false god Baal, and left the temple of God looking like that. So King Joash decided to do something about it. He decided to repair the temple of God. And he sent all through the kingdom to collect money so that there would be enough to pay the workmen who would be working to repair God's holy temple. And they fixed it up, and there was some money left over, so he was able also to get the vessels they use for worship and some silver trumpets to play the music during worship. And all of this was done until the temple of God was looking good again, and the people could worship, and the vessels were all there, and everyone was happy. So everything was going good in Judah. But of course, as the years went by, the priest Jehoiada got older, and then he died. And it was left just now with King Joash. At first, he continued quite well, but then he and his friends, and they did not remain as faithful as they should have. And they didn't worship God like before. And as this happened, you know what happened again? A king decided to make war against Judah, the king of Syria, and his name was King Hazael. What was his name? King Hazael. And he said he will come and fight Judah. Now, when King Joash heard this, he got afraid. He was scared. He didn't know what to do. Remember, he did not worship God like before. And of course, he didn't even think to pray and ask God to help. But you know what he did instead? He went to the temple of God and got lots of those precious vessels made from gold and silver, and collected a whole set of them and sent them to the king of Syria so that it would stop him from coming to fight him. And when the king of Syria received them, he went on back home. Was that a nice thing to do though? No, no, no. The things in the temple belong to God and his worship. Just like at church, the things that are inside church belong to worship, and we must treat them well. It wouldn't be good to carry them out and do what you feel like with them. You must treat those things well. And when he went back, the king of Syria went back home, and King Joash just got more and more discouraged until he stopped worshiping God. No, he started well, but he did not continue. And his servants now started to dislike him. And they were talking about him. And they didn't like him at all. Until you know what happened? They got together and they killed him in his own bed. His own servants, in his own bedroom, they killed him. That was such a sad end for a king who started so well. Does that remind you of another king who started well? You're right. King Asa also started well. And this lesson teaches us that you mustn't only start well, you must continue worshiping God, and you must end up worshiping God. And that's how he will be able to bless you and to guide you. Now, let's do our questions. I have different kinds of questions for you today. The first part, you answer true or false. True or false. Number 1. Joash was 8 years old when he became king. Is that true or is it false? Remember how we worked it out. So that answer is false. Correct. Remember, he was 1 year old, and then he was hidden for 6 years. So he was how old? 7. You are right. The name of the wicked queen was Alethea. Did you hear that during the story? Is this true or false? Her name was Queen Ophelia. Do not get the little syllables mixed up. Queen Ophelia. So that was false. The name of the priest was Jehoiada. Is that true or false? True. You are correct. Number 4. King Joash turned to God every time he needed help. Think carefully. Is this true or false? King Joash turned to God every time he needed help. True or false? False. Remember that important last time with the war? He didn't turn to God. So that's false. King Joash did lots of good for the temple of God. Is this true or false? Think carefully. That is true. Correct. Now, tell me the answers for these. What was the name of the king of Syria who came to attack them? The king of Syria. His name was King Hazael. Very good. If you would have found that answer in the book of 2 Kings. Why were there holes in the temple walls? Why were there holes in the temple walls? Correct. Queen Ophelia, wicked Queen Ophelia, knocked out some of the stones to take to her temple for Baal, the idol Baal. That's why there were holes. Now, the last 3 questions I have, I call them a special E-puzzle. And you have to fill in the missing letters. Now, I want you to be careful now. Listen carefully. The first one. Where was Joash hidden? Look at it carefully. Where was Joash hidden? Look and see where the missing letters are for and where the E's come. You have a few seconds to write that word. Where was Joash hidden? He was hidden in the temple. Correct. He was hidden in the temple. Hope you got that one right. Another E-puzzle. The people made a something that they would serve God. This something means the same as a promise. They made a something that they would please God. Look at the word. They made a something that they would please God. What was that? Let's see if you're going to get this one right. They made a pledge, or as you heard, it means a promise that they would please God. Very good. And the last one, in my E-puzzle, King Joash did something to the temple of God. He did something to the walls. What did King Joash do to the walls of the temple? What did he do? Let's see if you are going to get this one right. I hope you were listening well. He did something. It means the same thing as fix. Let's see how many of you got this one right. What did he do to the temple walls? He repaired them. That's right, he repaired them. Very good. I have some bright children in this class. So children, remember, we are learning important lessons. I do not just want you to know the stories, I want you to learn the lessons. In lesson 1 with King Rehoboam, you learn not to follow your peers, those people who are your age. Don't fall for peer pressure. Know what is right, stand for what is right. In lesson 2 with King Asa and this lesson with King Joash, you need not only to start, but to persevere and to continue till the end worshiping God. And last week's lesson with King Jehoshaphat, you learned that God fights for you when you pray and praise Him. And these lessons you can put into practice every day. I pray and I ask God to help me to live by them. And I want you to do the same, so that from the time now while you are young, He can prepare you to be His children and His servants with His message. Let us pray. Our Father, which art in heaven, we thank you so much for this important lesson we had today. King Joash was a little boy like the children who listened to the story. And he started well, like how our little children are learning about you right now. Help them not to follow his example and stop worshiping you, but to pledge and promise that by your grace, they will be faithful to you all their lives. Bless them and their parents who guide them, and take care of them today and the rest of this week and all their lives. For Jesus' sake, amen.
We've come to the end of another Sabbath School, and we want to thank you for joining us. I really hope that you enjoyed the lesson and everything today. Now, before we close off, remember that if you miss any of the episodes, you can check back. Or even if you want to just rewatch an episode, you can always check back, watch lesson 1, 2, and 3, and even rewatch this episode. But boys and girls, we've come to the end, and now we will close in prayer. Thank you, dear Lord, for a wonderful Sabbath school we had. Continue to bless us, bless our families, bless our friends, and we want to thank you for a wonderful time we had learning about you. Lord, help us to use our talents like Matthew did. Help us to be bold and brave and share your word with everyone. And thank you again for loving us and for all that you have done for us, we pray. Amen.
We had a happy meeting, so fast the moments flew. Until another Sabbath, we say goodbye to you. Goodbye, goodbye to you. Goodbye, goodbye to you. Until another Sabbath, we say goodbye to you.